My boyfriend had a female bro. She talked like a classic pick-me girl and wore a dress the exact same color as mine. I thought she was a cool girl. Pick me until that day, in the pouring rain, when she carried me on her back for 3 miles. First time I met Olivia was at a dinner with Nate's frat brothers. Before we went, Nate just laughed and said live, "Oh, she's basically just one of the guys." The moment I saw her, I was genuinely confused. Olivia's features were bright and flawless. She was wearing a soft, elegant white maxi dress. She looked up at me from her stool, 2 little dimples appearing on her cheeks as she smiled shyly. There was absolutely nothing one of the guys about her. Olivia had a slender figure, and the white dress made her look incredibly graceful. I, on the other hand, was a bit chubby. The color of my dress clashed perfectly with hers. Olivia opened her mouth, and the first thing she said was, "What a coincidence, we're wearing the exact same color." Yes, compared to her, I looked like a complete clown. I felt incredibly awkward, but I still reached out my hand to be friendly. Look at her pretending to be shy. She used to be so violent. She chased me down the street to beat me up. My boyfriend Nate laughed playfully, shoving Olivia's shoulder. Olivia suddenly jumped up, slapping Nate on the shoulder. Her voice was playful, chirping like a happy little bird. "What kind of nonsense are you talking about? Am I wrong?" Nate laughed. Dodging her slaps, I stood frozen in place, my outstretched hand hanging awkwardly in the air. I turned my head and watched my boyfriend roughhousing with her. It felt like I was the outsider. My nose stung, and I closed my eyes. I didn't want to watch them play fight, and I didn't want to leave a bad impression of being a jealous girlfriend. The first time I met his best friend, until I heard a loud resounding smack echo through the room. The moment I opened my eyes, I saw a bright red handprint stamped across my boyfriend's cheek. Nate's shocked voice rang out. "Holy shit, did you put your whole arm into that slap?" Getting to know Nate, I slowly got to know Olivia. Whenever Nate mentioned Olivia, his mouth was full of praise. He said Olivia was cheerful and optimistic, a true example of a girl raised with old money. I added Olivia on Snapchat and Instagram. Olivia's Instagram was filled with photos of her surfing in Hawaii. Her slender figure and radiant energy made her look like a white seagull soaring over the ocean. There were photos of her snowboarding in Aspen, writing papers in a Parisian cafe, wearing chic glasses with her slender, swan-like neck lowered. She looked gentle and intellectual, even though I felt a bit sour because of their play fighting. That first time I couldn't help but sigh to Nate. Olivia really is an incredible person. Nate snatched my phone and said, "Hey, why is her profile public now? She used to have it set to close friends only." Nate's casual remark made my sensitive mind overthink. Why did she suddenly make her profile public right after I added her? As I scrolled through Olivia's feed, Nate immediately leaned his head close to mine to look. He was highly enthusiastic, constantly urging me to scroll to the next picture. After a few swipes, I suddenly didn't want to scroll anymore. I was jealous. I asked him, half joking, half serious, "Do you have a crush on her?" Nate replied with a goofy grin, "Who wouldn't like a rich heiress? But don't worry, she doesn't date all right." Stop overthinking. If something was going to happen between us, it would have happened years ago. As he said that, he continued staring intently at Olivia's photos, locked my phone screen through the dark reflection of the screen. I clearly saw his crestfallen expression. It looked exactly like the disappointment and sorrow of not being able to obtain a coveted treasure. Actually, I had probably heard the name Olivia back in college very day. Nate accepted my confession. He was drunk, repeatedly mumbling the word "live" under his breath. A 6'2" guy crying like a dog in the middle of a diner. I heard the friend next to him shove him and say, "Enough. Liv just went abroad to study. She's not dead." His friend called me, and I rushed to the diner to pick him up. I half carried, half dragged him home, a planter on the side of the road. He grabbed the hood of my sweatshirt and violently threw up all over me. The Emma from back then was so stupid. My heart and eyes were completely full of him. I didn't feel an ounce of disgust. The highest level of liking someone is feeling your heart take for them. With blurry, drunken eyes, he looked up and saw my face full of concern. Nate gripped my wrist incredibly tight. The boy's eyes burned bright like flames. He said, "You're the only one who won't abandon me." Then, as if granting me a charity, he said, "Let's be together." I really truly loved Nate. I gave him all my sincerity and love. But in Nate's heart, it seemed Olivia was always there. It was hard for me not to care. But I never asked too much. He seemed to have forgotten Olivia because of my passionate and sincere love. He began to love me back until Olivia returned from abroad, breaking that balance. Even though I minded so much, Olivia seemed to do it on purpose. She started inviting Nate and me out frequently. She was like a bird, proudly and arrogantly diving straight into our lives. Olivia invited Nate and me to play tennis. I didn't want to go, but I also didn't want Nate playing alone with her. I pleaded with Nate, "Can you just say no? I don't know how to play tennis. I really don't want to, but I want to play." Nate said, looking at me seriously. "But if you want to play, you can play with other friends. We don't have to go to Olivia today." I stammered out my explanation. Nate's handsome brow furrowed. "Looking annoyed because of you. Am I not allowed to have normal recreational activities anymore? I never noticed you being this unreasonable before. Why are you so possessive?" I went silent. His impatient tone let me know I couldn't stop him. I had no choice but to change into activewear and go with him. When we got to the courts, Olivia was wearing a pleated tennis skirt, her high ponytail swishing lightly. She looked like a proud little white bird. Her big almond eyes widened as she tossed a racket directly to me. "Emma, play with me. I'm not very good at this." I tried to refuse. My boyfriend chimed in from the sidelines. "Play with her, no. I specifically want to play with Emma." Her eyes curved into smiling crescents. Faced with Olivia's enthusiasm, I had no choice but to accept. Unsurprisingly, as someone who sucked at sports, I was absolutely decimated by her. I couldn't return a single serve, my slightly chubby figure running awkwardly across the court. Like a clumsy raccoon, I was getting angry inside, looking so pathetic in front of my boyfriend. Was she doing this on purpose? In contrast to me, she shone even brighter. Beautiful and athletic, she was simply perfect, especially after the workout. Some strands of hair had come loose. Sweat stuck them to her fair cheeks. She looked like a porcelain doll. When another tennis ball rolled past me onto the ground, I said, "I'm done playing." Olivia held her racket, smiling at me. "Okay, let's go take a break together then." Then she put down her racket and redid her hair, which had gotten messy from playing. She deliberately held her hair tie in her mouth, facing my direction as she fixed her hair with her hands, exposing her fair swan-like neck. The way she looked with the hair tie in her mouth was incredibly beautiful, honestly. She looked like an innocent, adorable deer exposing its neck. My heart skipped a beat, but I was absolutely certain she was deliberately showing off her charm. Sure enough, I turned around and saw Nate standing behind me, watching her without even blinking. I hated Olivia. I hated the powerless feeling of knowing she was getting closer and closer to my boyfriend, being unable to do anything about it. I lucidly watched Nate's appreciation for Olivia become less and less disguised. But when I brought it up, he would just say, "Liv and I are just friends. You're my girlfriend, stop overthinking." Even though he said that I had a sinking feeling I was his backup plan, his safety net, he realized that being with me had the highest ROI. He realized I treated him the best, was probably just the honest girl settling down with him. Blissfully unaware of my inner turmoil, Olivia continued to invite Nate and me to the movies. She sent a screenshot of the booked tickets. Seat choices were very interesting. 2 seats were together, and the other seat was right in front of them. I had already guessed that I would definitely be the one sitting in the front, while she and Nate got cozy in the back. Olivia even sent a pouty apologetic emoji on Snapchat. There were only these 3 seats left. I complained inwardly, but since Nate insisted on going, was absolutely not going to let them be alone together. It was a horror movie too. I could already picture Olivia pretending to be a fragile, scared girl just to sit with my boyfriend. Pick me, sure enough. As soon as we got to the theater entrance, Olivia ran over and grabbed my arm. Her expression was pitiful as she said to me, "You don't mind, right, Emma?" I really couldn't hold back my anger anymore. But Olivia's second sentence choked out my fury. "I'll sit with Emma, Nate. You sit in the front, you don't have a problem with that, right?" I stood there, blinking rapidly, my brain short-circuiting as I tried to process the words leaving her glossy, perfectly painted lips. Nate's jaw dropped. The smug, expectant look he'd been wearing, the one that said he was about to spend 2 hours shoulder to shoulder with his unattainable dream girl, evaporated. "Wait, what?" "Liv, I got the tickets so we could all hang out," Olivia interrupted smoothly, her tone leaving no room for argument. She looped her arm through mine, her grip surprisingly firm, pulling my slightly larger frame against her slender one. She smelled like expensive jasmine and rain. "Besides, Emma and I are going to share the popcorn. You always eat it too fast. Go on, front row." "Shoo." Nate looked like a kicked dog, but because it was Olivia giving the command, he let out a forced, awkward laugh, scratching the back of his neck. "Yeah, okay, sure, whatever." As we walked into the darkened theater, my heart was thumping a chaotic rhythm against my ribs. I sat down in the plush seat, and Olivia slid in right next to me, leaving the seat in front of us for Nate. When he sat down, all we could see was the back of his head. The lights dimmed. The trailer started playing. I sat stiff as a board, acutely aware of the warmth radiating from Olivia's arm brushing against mine. Why was she doing this? Was it a power play? Was she trying to show Nate that she controlled everything, even his girlfriend? About 20 minutes into the horror movie, a jump scare made the entire theater gasp. I didn't scream, but I tensed up, gripping the armrest. Suddenly, I felt a soft hand cover mine. I looked down in the dark. It was Olivia's hand. I looked over at her, my eyes wide. She wasn't looking at the screen. She was looking at me. In the flickering blue light of the projector, her almond eyes were entirely focused on my face. She leaned in, her lips brushing just inches from my ear. Her breath was warm. "You know he's an idiot, right?" she whispered. My breath hitched. "What?" I breathed back. "Nate," she whispered, her eyes flicking to the back of his head with a look of absolute disdain, before softening as they returned to me. "He brings a girl as incredible as you to a movie, and he expects you to sit alone. He doesn't deserve you, Emma." I froze. My entire worldview, the narrative I had built in my head where I was the clumsy, ugly duckling getting in the way of a beautiful romance, cracked straight down the middle. Before I could formulate a response, she squeezed my hand, gently pulled hers away, and went back to watching the movie. She didn't look at me for the rest of the film, but she kept the popcorn bucket perfectly centered on my lap, making sure her fingers brushed mine every time we reached for a handful. When the movie ended and the lights flared on, Nate practically leapt out of his seat, turning to us with a manufactured grin that didn't reach his eyes. "Well, that was great. Liv, you were probably terrified back there, huh?" "Not at all," Olivia said, standing up and stretching gracefully. "Emma protected me. She shot me a secret, dazzling smile that made my stomach do a weird, unfamiliar flip." The ride home was suffocatingly tense. Nate drove, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles were white. He dropped Olivia off at her upscale apartment building first. She leaned through the window, waved at me, and said, "Let's grab coffee soon, Emma. Just us." "Yeah," I mumbled, my face inexplicably hot. "Sure." As soon as she was out of sight, the atmosphere in the car turned venomous. "What the hell was that?" Nate snapped, hitting the gas a little too hard. "What was what?" "You freezing me out," he yelled, his voice echoing in the small car. "You purposely sat with Liv, so I'd be stuck in the front like some loser. I brought you along to be nice, and you make me look like an idiot in front of her." The injustice of it hit me like a physical blow. "Me? I didn't do anything." "She asked to sit with me." "Oh, please," Nate scoffed, his eyes cruel in the rearview mirror. "Liv is just nice. She felt sorry for you because you were probably standing there looking like a miserable, jealous girlfriend. You've been acting insane ever since she got back." "God, Emma, why are you so insecure?" I stared at the side of his face. The face I had wiped vomit off of. The face I had kissed when he cried. I realized, with a sickening clarity, that I wasn't looking at a tragic romantic hero who just couldn't get over his first love. I was looking at a narcissist who kept me around to stroke his ego, and who was furious that his shiny new toy preferred playing with his safety net. "Take me home," I said quietly. "I am taking you home," he muttered. "No. Take me to my apartment." "I'm not staying at your place tonight." He rolled his eyes, a heavy, dramatic sigh escaping his lips. "Fine. Be a brat." Over the next 2 weeks, the dynamic shifted in a way that made my head spin. Olivia relentlessly pursued my friendship. She texted me every morning. She sent me memes. She tagged me in TikToks about baking and fashion. At first, I was deeply suspicious. I kept my guard up, giving her short, polite answers. But Olivia was like a force of nature. One Tuesday, she showed up at my office building right as I clocked out. She wasn't wearing her usual tennis skirts or flowing dresses. She was in vintage Levi's, a loose band tee, and Converse, holding 2 iced lattes. "Kidnapping you," she announced, shoving a latte into my hand. I didn't have the energy to fight her. We ended up at a quiet park overlooking the city. We sat on a bench, the autumn breeze ruffling our hair. I realized, looking at her without the blinding filter of my own jealousy, that she wasn't putting on a show. The pick-me energy I thought I saw? It was entirely in my head, or rather, it was the framing Nate had created. "Why are you doing this?" I finally asked, staring at my iced coffee. "Why are you hanging out with me?" Olivia sighed, leaning back and resting her long legs on the bench across from us. "I know what you think of me, Emma. I know Nate has painted this picture of me as the cool girl, the rich heiress he's tragically in love with." I looked at her, startled by her bluntness. "Let me tell you about Nate," she said, her voice hardening. "We were in the same friend group freshman year. I thought he was a nice guy, but he became obsessive. If I talked to another guy, he'd throw a tantrum. He constantly tried to isolate me. He liked the idea of me the trophy he could show off to his frat brothers. When I finally told him I would never date him, He got drunk, showed up at my dorm, and screamed at me. He called me a stuck-up bitch who led him on. I felt the blood drain from my face. But he told everyone you were just playing hard to get, that you guys were basically together. Delusion, Olivia said dryly. When I saw he was dating you, I was actually relieved. I thought maybe he'd grown up. But then I saw how he treats you. The little digs at your weight. The way he makes you feel lucky to be with him. The way he flirted with me right in front of you. She turned to face me, her eyes fierce. Do you remember the day you met me? The day I slapped him. He said you put your whole arm into it, I whispered. I did, she said without a hint of remorse. Because right before you walked in, he cornered me in the hallway and whispered, I'm only with her to pass the time until you're ready. I slapped him so hard my hand went numb. I wanted you to see it. I wanted you to ask why I did it. But you were so focused on being the good girlfriend that you just stood there. My heart shattered in my chest. Not for Nate, but for the girl I was 2 weeks ago. The Emma who ironed his shirts, who endured his disrespect, who hated herself because she didn't look like the girl sitting next to her. I made my Instagram public because I knew you'd look, Olivia confessed, a slight blush dusting her flawless cheeks. I wanted you to see my life. I wanted you to see that I'm not some untouchable goddess. I'm just a girl. And honestly, she looked down at her hands. The day at the tennis court, I didn't want you to feel bad. I wanted to play with you. And when I was putting my hair up, looking at you, I wasn't trying to show off for Nate. The memory hit me like a lightning bolt. She deliberately held her hair tie in her mouth, facing my direction, exposing her fair swan-like neck. She wasn't doing it for him. She was doing it for me. A profound, terrifying realization washed over me. I had been so conditioned by the male gaze, by Nate's desires, that I assumed everything beautiful women did was for the attention of men. I hadn't even considered the possibility that a girl like Olivia could be looking at a girl like me. I have to go, I panicked, standing up abruptly. I wasn't ready. It was too much. I was still tangled in the rotting vines of my relationship with Nate. Emma, wait. I have to go, Olivia. Thank you for the coffee. I practically ran to the bus stop. That night, things came to a head. Nate came over to my apartment. He didn't ask, he just let himself in with his spare key. He immediately started complaining about his day, tossing his jacket onto my dining table, expecting me to pick it up. Did you make dinner? He asked, opening my fridge and scoffing at the contents. You need to go grocery shopping. Also, some guy in my class asked for Liv's number today. I told him to back off. She's way out of his league. I stood in the center of the kitchen, watching him. The illusion was completely gone. The veil had been lifted. He looked ugly to me. His posture was arrogant, his mouth cruel. I'm breaking up with you, I said. My voice was quiet, but it echoed in the small apartment. Nate froze, the fridge door still open. He slowly closed it, turning to look at me with a smirk. What did you say?
We're done, Nate.
Leave your key on the counter and get out. The smirk vanished, replaced by a dark, ugly scowl. Are you out of your mind? You're breaking up with me? Over what? Because I look at Olivia? He let out a harsh, barking laugh. You're pathetic. You're just incredibly insecure. You think you're going to find someone better than me? Look in the mirror, Emma. You're lucky I even put up with you. The old me would have cried. The old me would have internalized those words, believing them to be the absolute truth. But the new me, the me who had felt the warm, steady pressure of Olivia's hand in the dark theater, felt absolutely nothing but disgust. Get out, I said, my voice steady, before I call the police. He saw the deadness in my eyes and realized I wasn't bluffing. His face flushed with rage. He threw his spare key at the wall, leaving a small dent in the drywall, grabbed his jacket, and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the framed pictures in my hallway rattled. I stood in the silence for a long time. Then I packed a small overnight bag. I couldn't stay here tonight. The walls felt like they were closing in. I needed air. I needed to walk. When I stepped outside, the sky tore open. It didn't just rain. It poured. A massive, sudden thunderstorm swallowed the city. Sheets of icy water pelted against me. I didn't have an umbrella. Within seconds, my clothes were soaked through, my hair plastered to my face. I started walking toward my friend Sarah's house, which was 3 miles away. The streets were quickly flooding. Cars drove past, splashing dirty water onto my jeans. I was shivering, crying, the adrenaline of the breakup finally fading, leaving behind a cold, hollow ache. The water mixed with my tears, blinding me.
Beep, beep.
A sleek black SUV pulled up slowly beside me, the window rolling down. Emma, what the hell are you doing? It was Olivia. She looked terrified, her eyes scanning my soaked, shivering form. She shoved the car into park, not even bothering to pull over properly, and threw her door open. She ran out into the pouring rain, ignoring how the downpour instantly ruined her expensive silk blouse. I broke up with him, I sobbed, my teeth chattering uncontrollably. I told him to leave. Olivia's expression shifted from panic to a fierce, blazing relief. Get in the car. Now. I shook my head, stepping back.
I'm soaked.
I'll ruin your seats. I'm just walking to Sarah's. Emma, the street ahead is completely flooded. A tree just came down blocking the road. My car can't even get through. She stepped closer to me, the rain matting her dark hair to her forehead. I was driving to your place. I had a bad feeling after you ran off today. You were coming to check on me? Of course I was. She looked around at the rising water on the pavement, then back at me, her jaw set with determination. Without another word, she turned around, crouching down slightly. Get on. What? Get on my back, Emma. The water here is getting deep and freezing, and you're wearing canvas sneakers. My boots are waterproof. I'm carrying you to my place. It's only a few blocks from here. Olivia, no. I'm heavy. I'm chubby. You can't carry me. I protested, the old insecurities flaring up, humiliating me even in the middle of a storm. Olivia turned her head, looking over her shoulder at me. Her almond eyes were entirely serious. You are not heavy. You're perfect. Now get on my fucking back before we both catch pneumonia. I hesitated for a second longer, but the freezing wind pushed me forward. I awkwardly wrapped my arms around her neck and hopped up, wrapping my legs around her waist. Olivia stood up with ease. She was athletic, toned from years of tennis and surfing, and she carried my weight without a single complaint. She adjusted her grip under my thighs and started marching through the flooded street, the rain battering us. I've got you, she murmured, turning her head slightly so her cheek rested against mine for a brief second. She was so warm. Despite the freezing rain, despite the absolute chaos of the night, I felt an overwhelming sense of safety. I buried my face in her wet hair, smelling the faint trace of jasmine underneath the scent of rain and asphalt. She carried me like that through the storm. When we finally got to her apartment building, the concierge stared at us with wide eyes. Olivia ignored him, carrying me straight into the elevator. When we got inside her penthouse, she finally set me down. We were both panting, leaving a massive puddle on her expensive hardwood floor. Bathroom is down the hall. Hot shower. Go, she ordered, already pulling off her soaked boots. I'll leave dry clothes by the door. 20 minutes later, I emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a massive, fluffy towel, wearing a pair of Olivia's sweatpants and an oversized cashmere sweater. The clothes swallowed me, but they were incredibly soft. I walked into the living room. The storm was raging outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, lightning illuminating the city skyline. Olivia was sitting on her plush velvet sofa, wearing a bathrobe, her wet hair wrapped in a towel. She was holding 2 mugs of steaming tea. She patted the spot next to her. I walked over and sat down, pulling my knees to my chest. She handed me a mug. Chamomile. Thank you, I whispered, staring into the amber liquid. For everything. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to, she said simply. Silence stretched between us, thick and heavy, but not uncomfortable. The hostility and jealousy I had harbored for months felt like it belonged to a different lifetime. I'm sorry, I said softly. I'm sorry I thought you were a pick-me girl. I'm sorry I judged you based on a dress, and based on the lies a toxic guy told me. Olivia set her mug down on the coffee table. She turned her body entirely toward me. Emma, do you know why I really wanted to play tennis with you that day? I looked up, meeting her gaze. To be nice? No. She reached out, her cool fingers gently brushing a damp strand of hair out of my eyes. Her touch sent a jolt of electricity straight to my core. Because the first time I saw you at that frat dinner, wearing that white dress, I thought you were the most beautiful girl I had ever seen. You looked so soft, so sweet. And then I saw you holding Nate's hand, and it made me so incredibly angry. My breath caught in my throat. I stared at her, my mind racing. But you're Olivia. You're rich. You're flawless. You travel the world. I'm just me. You're kind, Emma, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper, her face leaning closer to mine. You're fiercely loyal. You have these big, expressive eyes that give away everything you're feeling. I saw the way you looked at me, with so much hurt when I joked around with Nate. It killed me. I wanted to shake you and tell you that he wasn't worth your tears. I wanted to take you away from him. She paused, her gaze dropping to my lips before rising back to my eyes. I don't date guys, Emma. Nate knew that. He just couldn't handle his ego being bruised by a lesbian. The word hung in the air, clicking every single missing puzzle piece into place. The public Instagram, the movie theater seats, the hair tie, the lingering looks, the fierce protectiveness. She wasn't competing with me for Nate. She was competing with Nate for me. Oh, I breathed out, feeling incredibly stupid and yet incredibly light. Olivia smiled, those 2 little dimples appearing on her cheeks. Yeah,
Oh.
She didn't push. She didn't try to kiss me. She just pulled a blanket over both of our laps and turned on the TV. We sat there, shoulders touching, watching a stupid reality show while the storm raged outside. For the first time in a year, I wasn't anxious. I wasn't wondering if I was enough. I just was. The fallout with Nate was messy, but brief. He tried to play the victim on social media, posting sad lyrics and trying to paint me as the crazy, jealous ex who abandoned him. But when he showed up at my apartment building 3 days later to demand I give him back a hoodie, he didn't find me crying alone. He found me walking out of the lobby, hand in hand with Olivia. Nate stopped dead in his tracks on the sidewalk. His eyes darted from our intertwined fingers to my face, then to Olivia's. His brain visibly short-circuited. The absolute betrayal and horror on his face was cinematic. "What the fuck is this?" he sputtered, his face turning a mottled red. "Emma, what are you doing with her?" I looked at the man I used to think was the center of my universe. He looked so small, so pathetic. "We're going to brunch," I said calmly. "You're a psycho," Nate yelled, pointing a finger at Olivia. "You manipulated her. You just wanted to steal my girlfriend because you hate me." Olivia didn't even flinch. She stepped slightly in front of me, her posture commanding and utterly unbothered.
No, Nate.
I just showed her what it looks like when someone actually values her. Something you're completely incapable of. Now get out of our way before I slap the other side of your face. Nate took a step back, instinctively raising a hand to his cheek. He looked between the two of us, realizing he had absolutely zero power left. He scoffed, muttered something derogatory under his breath, and practically ran in the opposite direction. I watched him go, feeling a massive weight lift off my shoulders. I squeezed Olivia's hand. She looked down at me, her eyes softening instantly. "You okay?" she asked. "Never better," I smiled. 1 year later, the sun was setting over the ocean in Hawaii, painting the sky in brilliant strokes of violet and gold. The sand was still warm beneath my bare feet as I walked along the shoreline. I was wearing a soft, elegant white maxi dress. It flowed in the sea breeze, hugging the curves of my body perfectly. I had stopped trying to shrink myself. I had stopped apologizing for the space I took up. A few yards ahead, emerging from the surf with a surfboard under her arm, was Olivia. The water glistened on her tan skin. She shook her wet hair out, looking like a literal goddess, but her eyes weren't scanning the beach for an audience. They locked immediately onto me. She dropped the surfboard on the sand and jogged toward me, a massive, radiant smile breaking across her face, her dimples showing. "You look beautiful," she said, wrapping her wet arms around my waist, not caring that she was getting my dress damp. "We're matching," I laughed, pointing to the white bikini she was wearing. "A coincidence," she teased, leaning in. "But I think you pull off white much better than I do." I wrapped my arms around her neck, remembering the day she had carried me through the pouring rain. She had carried me out of the storm, out of my insecurities, and into a life where I was the main character, not the backup plan. "I love you," I whispered. Olivia kissed me, tasting like sea salt and sunshine. "I love you more, Emma. Let's go home." As we walked back up the beach, hand in hand, the shadows of the past were completely washed away by the tide. I wasn't the chubby girl standing awkwardly in a clashing dress anymore. I was exactly where I was supposed to be,